Hello, everyone. So today on the podcast, I am interviewing someone named Christina, and she's going to talk about her autism journey, a little bit about autism diagnosis, what it was like to be an autistic woman, maybe something about sensory issues, and a couple other topics as well. So welcome, Christina. Thank you so much for joining today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear it. So, Christina, how long have you known that you're autistic?
Not very long. So I'm 42, and I only kind of discovered, because I didn't know anything about autism when my daughter was born. But after, she had a speech delay, a really wicked speech delay, actually, and she wasn't talking by the time she was 3. And if you Google speech delay, you get autism. And then I found myself there. I'm like, wow, this sounds a lot like my childhood. And my daughter's just like me. So I'm not actually diagnosed yet. My daughter is. She's diagnosed level 2. I got an ADHD diagnosis myself or actually just prior to her being diagnosed with autism. So I still have to go in and do a full autism assessment. So I'm waiting on that. I'm on a waiting list.
Okay, so right now, suspected autism, diagnosed ADHD, you'd say?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's tough. With ADHD and autism, does it ever feel like they kind of compete?
Absolutely, all the time. Sometimes I just want to stay at home, but at the same time, I'm so bored and I don't know what to do with myself. I'm like, what? But I don't want to go out. So yeah, sometimes it's a very huge internal struggle. I think that my ADHD also makes me a lot more social. So after I got diagnosed, I went on stimulant medication for a while, and every bit of socialization that I'd ever done, I don't want to do it anymore. Right?
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, I just want to stay at home and do my art, and I didn't really have the desire to socialize nearly as much as I did before. So they do compete against each other a lot, I would say, for sure.
That's wild that the medication would work so well that you wouldn't want to socialize anymore. I can so relate to that for trying to go out and talk to people for, trying to balance out some dopamine.
Exactly. And then I had all the dopamine I needed. And so all I wanted to do was the things I was interested in doing,
Yeah.
Staying at home, being with my family, doing art. And I had absolutely no desire to really to go out at all, right? I was just very much content in my own little bubble and was like, there's no need to do anything else. This is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long ago was that you started looking into it and started suspecting maybe I'm autistic?
So my daughter got diagnosed approximately almost 2 years ago, and that's when I got my ADHD diagnosis. So it was a year before that. So it's been probably about 2.5 years.
Wow.
So it's really not that long ago at all.
That's pretty recent. And
so 40 years.
Wow.
Knowing something was different about me, but not having a name for it, really.
It's rough. I'm sorry to hear that.
It was an interesting life, not really understanding, because you don't have when you don't have a label for it and you don't have words to describe how you're feeling. At least for me, I had a tendency to use words that I knew. So, for example, if I had autistic burnout, I thought I was depressed. So I would just tell everyone I was depressed. But if I look at the actual meaning of depression, I don't really think I was depressed.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't a normal type of depression. I've been depressed, but that does not explain burnout for me at all. So
yeah, that's really challenging. I also was late diagnosed, and I basically only got my diagnosis from doing a psychological profile and analysis of my whole life. And that was at age 26. So I can so relate to you there. When you don't know that when you don't have words to describe what's different about you, it can be really hard not to go down the path of self-rejection.
Oh, absolutely. Or thinking somehow this is my fault.
Yep.
right? I'm going through this because of something that's morally wrong with me. I had a lot of that. It's actually very liberating to have words for it, to understand the experiences now, and just be like, you know what, it's okay. Like I understand why, and I can take care of myself better, knowing and having like just a much better explanation than I had before.
Definitely. Being
Right?
your own advocate is crucial. And if you don't even know what you're struggling with, you can't advocate for yourself. You just start thinking, am I an alien from outer space who talks this way that no one will ever understand?
Absolutely. And then you find like I found an entire community of people that even if I don't necessarily like respond to all posts or get involved in every discussion that takes place, I read them. I'm like, wow, you know what? I feel that like that sounds like something that I've been through too, you know, and that
Definitely.
happens so many times.
To know that you're not
Well,
alone in your struggles and that you're not the only
mhm.
person dealing with them helps in an indescribable way.
Definitely does. So I'm so glad. Like one of the reasons why I found the adult autism community in the first place was because if you look at the DSM and you look at what it's the criteria for diagnosing autism, and I'm looking at this trying to figure out if my daughter might have has autism. Like these criteria don't make sense. Like what does that actually look like in real life? You know what? Autistic children grow up. What do they say? And that's how I found the community. And I'm like, oh, wow. So that's what they say. Oh, that sounds like me. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I would
Yeah.
love to say, seriously, a kudos to you. Like, I can't tell you how many parents will have their kids get a diagnosis and then they kind of remain in denial about it for themselves. Like, oh, well, that couldn't be me. Or they just kind of say, yeah, that doesn't exist because they don't want to admit it about themselves. So I think it's fantastic not only that you got your daughter diagnosed at such a young age, but also that you were willing to talk to the community to look at what does this mean? What does this look like? And then to be able to be open-minded enough to have these types of self-discoveries is fantastic.
It's, well, there's a combination of things that took place with that. One of which being like my daughter is just so much like me. I don't know if that happens to other parents who can be in denial.
Yeah.
Her body language is like mine. She has the same problem. Unfortunately, this is something that was really hard for me. The mutism problem, where sometimes she just is uncomfortable and she cannot speak. And wow, I was like that too, more when I was a kid, especially. But it took me a really long time to get over. There's just so many different aspects of her that remind me of myself. Like when I had people speaking to me, especially when I was very young, and I had absolutely no idea what they were saying. I had to wait and I had to replay it in my head. I had to say it out loud. And then I could answer. And people would, like when I was a kid, people would be so angry with me because it took me so long to answer questions. They just thought, they thought I was an idiot, right? Like, and that's how
Wow.
I felt growing up, like that I was unintelligent because I couldn't speak back to people immediately. I had such a huge, long delay. And I sometimes see that with my girl too. I'm like, yep, it's like, some things are just so undeniable.
That's wild. So, I would
Mhm.
love to hear more about what your experience is like for experiencing that, and also what you observe, how you observe your daughter reacts with that. Selective mutism is one of the things that I've really never had to deal with. I'm kind of on the flip side of that, on the hyperverbal side. So, I would be absolutely fascinated to hear about what that experience is like, internally.
Well, so I think it's in some ways it's a little bit complicated because mutism, I don't think there was just one thing that caused mutism for me. When I was very young, especially with people I didn't know very well, I had a really, so this is where ADHD also comes into play. I had a really hard time like, it's not that I wasn't listening, I wasn't absorbing what people were saying, right? I heard them, but I had to connect the meaning inside my head
Yep.
too. And sometimes like I couldn't look at their eyes while I was doing it, because then it, it it just literally did not go inside my brain if I was staring at someone's eyes while I was speaking to them.
Yeah.
Also, well, this also has to do with eye contact as well. I hated making eye contact. That's different from my daughter. She's like the exact opposite
Wow.
when it comes to eye contact. But for eye contact, for me, especially when I was young, so especially teachers, people I didn't know very well, if they looked me right in the eyes while they were speaking with me, it's almost like, and especially if they were angry, because I tended to make people very upset with me when I was young. Um, it's like I could feel what they were feeling while they were speaking to me. Like I could feel their anger inside of me, and I wouldn't know what to do. Like I'd be scared, and I'd stare at them, and I didn't know what they were saying. I didn't know what to say back. I just knew that they were angry with me.
Yeah.
And so, turning away, not wanting to make eye contact with people was something that it's very young. Like I'm kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, like especially my very young years. And it made it hard. I got bullied when I was in school, and I couldn't say anything to anyone. I couldn't tell anyone. I was too afraid.
Yeah.
It's very much an anxiety thing. And when I tried to speak, if I could get the words out, I'd whisper. Like I'd
Yeah.
have to practice, and then it would come out like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
And
think that was
it
a
was tough.
survival tactic for you so that you could try to not be seen as much and not be
Well,
targeted?
definitely I didn't want to be seen. So absolutely. But I think I was actually targeted because of that.
Yep.
It made it easy for people to target me because they knew I couldn't tell on them,
Yeah.
right? So I spent a lot of time just trying to avoid other kids,
Yeah, and
like
I'm sure
in
that
school.
didn't help with learning social behaviors.
Absolutely not. Even on the playground at school, I always just wanted to play by myself.
Yeah.
I didn't really want to be around the other students. And when I did, it was more, everyone was like, I live in Canada, so there's lots of snow. We're all climbing up snow hills and sliding down. Parallel play. I was never really playing with them. I was
Yeah.
playing around them, right?
Definitely. Yeah. Do you think that you would have wanted to interact with them more if you hadn't experienced that amount of bullying?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I felt left out a lot, especially with girls. I didn't know how, when I got older, especially. I did have some friends when I was in my younger years, like girlfriends. Um, but that got worse as I got older. And yeah, I do really like, because then the girls started bullying me, and that was really hard too. When I was younger, it was usually boys. Yeah, I felt really left out. And I really wanted to learn how to make friends, but I always felt like they knew exactly what to do and exactly.
I think
Very shy.
your audio just cut out a little bit. What was that?
Oh, is that better?
Yeah.
Um, well, I was saying that that I really wanted to connect with the girls in my while I was in school. I really wanted to connect with them, but I felt like they all knew pretty much how to get along with one another, what to say to one another, and I didn't. Like they had a social book that I never got on,
Yep.
what to talk about, when to say what's acceptable in one situation but not in another. And so I made a lot of mistakes too. When I finally opened my mouth, it was always the wrong thing.
Yeah. So then that doesn't
Yeah,
help with the confidence of being willing to talk to people and try to have a relationship.
absolutely. So I felt very isolated up until it took me a really long time to learn how to mask my autism. I was probably around 2021 when I finally got a social mask that seemed to work for me. And
Wow.
that's when I started opening up a lot more. So basically, when I started masking was sometime around the age of 2021, not the year, my age. And I actually learned this, and it's the funniest part. I learned so many of my social skills from working in a call center. And I used to do like outbound sales calls, which terrified me because I didn't speak. So I had to really force myself, but I didn't see the people. And then I don't know. The place that I worked at had like a lot of fun coworkers, and I started making fun friends with the people that I was working with. And somehow working in a call center helped me learn how to mask. It was, I look
That's
back on that
wild.
now, I'm like, that's exactly when it happened. That is so weird, but that's exactly when it happened.
Yeah.
Um,
Did it ever
so yeah.
feel like learning how to mask later in life and being autistic has been really difficult for you? Was it hard for you to connect with your culture in general or your peers throughout the years?
Oh, absolutely. I come from an interesting culture, anyways. Where it's an Anabaptist religion. It's very strict, very conservative, with a lot of rules. Um, and I had a religious upbringing, but from about the time I was, I'm gonna say about 5 years old, I questioned where God came from. It was just one of those things that I like to think about because I heard about God a lot when I was growing up. If God created man, who created God? I was about 5 years old when I thought that. So it put a big rift because even though I needed to do all of these things for my family, go to church for my family, I was a denier from basically birth. It feels like.
Yeah.
So yeah, culturally, yeah, I had some issues there. I think I did not fit in at all culturally with my family.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
did they still treat you pretty well despite that? I hope.
I think that a combination of she's going to grow out of it and denial,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was never really talked about, and I'm not sure how much I brought it up because it's something I would have gotten in trouble for, and I knew it. So I did keep it to myself a lot, especially when I was a lot younger.
Yeah. Did you ever go through periods of your life where you just had such an internal world that you didn't tell people anything about it?
I'm still like that. To this day, I'm still
Yeah.
like that. I think this is how I got my inattentive ADHD diagnosis. I daydream a lot. And I can go inside my own head and think about the most fantastical things. No one knows what's going on except for me. And they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm really thinking about something. I'm daydreaming about something, and it's awesome." you know?
Yeah. I can so relate to that.
hmm So, yeah,
That's
that is
funny.
definitely something that I've done. And that hasn't really helped me socially, especially when you do it around people you're supposed to be talking to.
You just need some more ADHD friends.
Exactly.
I'm
And
only I'm
I have
only
a
half
couple, which
kidding.
is awesome.
Part of my journey with diagnosis was realizing that every single person I was friends with had an ADHD diagnosis. And I started wondering,
Oh,
like, this is interesting. How come I only have ADHD friends?
you know what's really interesting? I think a lot of my friends are autistic. They just don't
Yeah.
know it yet.
I believe it. I totally believe that.
Yeah.
It's a
They're
good
the
combo somehow.
It is,
I don't even get
absolutely.
it.
If they don't feel like talking, don't worry. I got you covered, you know?
Yeah, we can dissociate together.
That too. Oh, and we can do the side by side play, where
Oh,
you're
I
doing
love
your
that.
thing and I'm doing my thing, but we're together. I like that too.
I
Like,
freaking love that. And would you explain that a little bit more? I think parallel play hasn't been one of the previous topics in other in my podcast yet. So maybe for some of the viewers, they don't know what that means.
so parallel play, I guess, definition wise, would be we're hanging out together, me and another person, but we're each doing our own thing. I'm not helping her or him with what they're doing, and they're not helping me. We're just sharing each other's company and doing our own thing at the exact same time.
Yeah, and somehow
Yeah.
it gives like a feeling of kinship and connection, despite not actually interacting with the other person,
Yes, absolutely.
and no one gets offended over it either.
No one gets offended. There's no like, oh, you should be paying attention to what I'm doing. We should be doing this together. No, everyone, we're just happy that way,
We're just vibing, yeah.
just vibing. And I do communicate with my one friend specifically that she likes to do her art, which she does completely different stuff than I do, and I like to do mine, but we're together. And every once in a while, we'll have like a 5-minute conversation, and then we'll go back to what we were doing.
That's awesome. I love it when you can do that with friends. It's fantastic because you can start on one topic, end up on the completely opposite topic, and they just go along with it.
Yep. And it flows so much easier than a lot of other conversations where if you try to change the topic or you don't intend to, but it's happening because that's the way your brain works, then other people are like, wait, we weren't talking about that. Why are you talking about this now? Like, well, and then you have, well, this one thing that we talked about
reminded me of this.
Yeah. Reminded me of this, which reminded me of this. And now I'm asking this completely unrelated question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens all the time to me.
Yeah.
Why are we talking about this now? Well, because,
Sometimes kind of the way I would describe it is like, it's almost like a spider web. You start on one end and you just branch out in so many different places, almost like all at once, that it seems like there's no connection between one topic and another, but actually there's just like 30 stops along the way.
Yeah, it all makes sense if you go backwards and you're like, we started talking about this because of this and then that because of this. But yeah, you don't really think about that in the moment. And it's better not to think about it. It's just let it be.
I straight up love it when people are able to do that. And it's surprising that a lot of people, that kind of makes them feel uncomfortable.
I never realized that until I was as old as I am.
I hear you.
I've had so many problems. People don't like that.
I hear you. All I can say is I can so relate. Like, I'm kind of on the opposite end in a way. I learned how to mask pretty much from birth, and the only way I can describe it is that my sister is not autistic. She's an expert at social cues, and I think that I was able to mask by more or less copying her.
Interesting. So, older sister.
Younger sister, actually.
Younger sister.
But people thought I was the younger one because I'm autistic.
I have an older sister, and I did copy her as well. It just never really worked the way I wanted it to.
Really? Wow, that's interesting.
Absolutely. I'm like, oh, well, she's doing this, and this is happening, so I'm going to try that too. And yeah, my attempts at masking when I was a kid, they seemed to fail. Like, I think it was because it was so obvious that there was something different about me that even the way that I was trying to imitate other people didn't come across the way it was supposed to.
Wow.
Right. Yeah.
There's pros and cons. I mean, the cons being that you didn't fit in, probably struggled a lot with that socially, but one of the pros is you're probably more authentically doing what you would have done, You're not.
In some ways, yeah.
Yeah. It's tough because masking is great to fit in, but masking can seriously cause burnout and cause a ton of problems where people don't know who they are.
Oh, yeah. As soon as I started masking in my early 20s, that's exactly when my burnouts started. That's when I started thinking that I was depressed all the time.
Yep. Definitely. So it's a double-edged sword because it's the only way we can survive in society, but yet it's extremely harmful to our well-being. And what also is frustrating for me is that people who aren't autistic don't seem to understand that.
They don't. They don't. One of the golden rule, like what they're trying to get out of ABA therapy is a masked autistic person.
I hate that so much.
That's what I got out of that reading about it when they wanted my daughter to do it. I'm like, no, no, thank you.
I'm so glad that you're protecting her from that. Like, a lot of people think, oh, what's the problem? But it's like an abusive environment, honestly.
And that's the thing. Like, I know that a lot of, I guess, neurotypical parents wouldn't understand it, but it was one of the key moments where I realized that, yeah, I must be autistic too. Because when I was reading about ABA, I wasn't seeing it necessarily from a parent's point of view. I was putting myself in my daughter's shoes and like pretending it was me going through ABA, being like, no.
But I thought,
and I would just get so uncomfortable about it.
But I thought autistic people aren't supposed to have cognitive empathy.
See, I do.
That was sarcasm.
I know it was sarcasm actually, but I got onto that. My cognitive empathy isn't actually that great. I practice it, to be fair, and
Well, what about with your daughter? Is it easy for you to
oh,
imagine what your daughter's going through?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah,
I
she just
have a
started
theory on
school.
this. Like,
Mhm.
a lot of the research that claims that autistic people don't have enough cognitive empathy is actually only comparing it to allistic, aka non-autistic people.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you there,
But when it comes to
100%.
autistic, I think we have more cognitive empathy. I mean, what other person in your daughter's life would be able to understand her better than someone who's having that direct lived experience like you are?
Exactly, and
And I'm just so
I
glad that
wanted
she has you in her life, honestly.
I really wanted, like, my goal in even before I knew anything about autism, before she displayed any signs, I just wanted her to be happy, and I didn't want her to feel the way I did growing up. And now this is me being completely unaware that of autism and ADHD. Even at the time, I wasn't
Wow.
diagnosed with either. So when she started to, like, when all of that started coming together, her traits and my memories, I was pretty positive. I'm like, I think I know what to do. I just have to think what would I have wanted in this situation, and and give that to her,
That's
right? And so
fantastic.
that's what I try to do.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. So, in general, what is something that you wish that society knew about autism or the average person even?
It's not a mental illness.
That's a good one.
Um yeah, it's not curable. It's not a mental illness. You can't give us a pill and make it go away.
Yeah,
Even ADHD, you can give us a pill, but it's still not going away.
true.
Um And it's not a personality disorder, and it's not bipolar. Those are the
It's not
two, I think,
bipolar.
yeah, it's the two most common misdiagnosis. I've had this problem with the misdiagnosis. I've seen online so many people talking about how they've also been misdiagnosed as well. Um, I think psychiatrists and doctors really need to know more about how autism is displayed in females, high masking females, who were never diagnosed because they were born in the 80s, like me, or, for some other reason they weren't diagnosed and now they're adults. Um,
Yeah,
that's what I really want society to know, that we can blend in, but doesn't mean that we're not autistic, and it doesn't mean that we have, some other disorder instead,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it's sad that you even have to mention it's not bipolar because that's how prevalent the misdiagnosis is that we have
Yeah,
to talk about how it's not bipolar on a podcast. Like,
exactly,
there should
right?
be better diagnostic tools and better people that are actually trained to recognize them and to suggest solutions other than let's clicker train this 3-year-old and maybe give it some electric shocks if it does something wrong.
Oh,
Like, I really don't think that's the
exactly.
approach we should take as a
And
society. Like,
and you're no,
autism
then
speaks.
you're just providing the opportunity for a mental illness by, electroshocking people when they do
Seriously,
something
yeah.
wrong. Like, I don't understand how people don't see that. To me, it's completely makes complete logical sense, the cause and effect,
Yeah.
right? If you do this to the child, they're not going to grow up healthy. I don't understand how other people don't see that and like, oh no, ABA is fine.
Yeah.
What? It is not fine.
Yeah,
Like,
Autism Speaks and ABA basically encourage children to place other people's needs above their own consistently and to pretty much ignore being their own advocate in favor of suppressing their true self,
mm-hmm.
which is harmful to them both psychologically and physically even. I had to mask so hard as a child just to not be abused by my peers that I have
Mm-hmm.
thinner teeth now as a result and jaw pain and a bunch of inflammatory issues. Like,
Oh, me too.
all of this, I feel like
Mm-hmm.
if there was better autism awareness, people would be healthier too. Because
Oh,
then
for sure.
you wouldn't be in a situation where you have to constantly try to validate your own existence.
Mm-hmm. And when you're saying, like, about all of the pain and everything that you went through, Me too. Like I started getting migraine headaches, horrible ones, when I was 7 years old.
Yeah, probably sensory overload.
Sensory overload. It's when I got bullied as well. High anxiety. I stopped eating at school.
Yeah, that's rough.
Um, yeah, and that's my mutism like went into like overdrive at that point, and like so many different things. And I think it had I just been, I mean, if I were a 7-year-old today, I'm pretty sure that I would have been diagnosed and maybe my life would have been a little bit different. I don't know. I can't say that. But in the 80s, people just ignored that stuff,
Yep.
you know? And
Even in the
yeah,
90s, they ignored it.
yeah. I don't know. Maybe
Sadly.
some people are still ignoring it today.
Yep, for sure. For sure.
Right? So,
Yeah. So, do you have any sensory issues or anything, any symptoms related to being autistic that you'd like to share?
yes. Sensory issue wise, I have some strange ones. So I like to bring up the ones that make people laugh. I can't touch cotton balls.
Oh,
You could probably like chase me around the entire world with a cotton ball. I will refuse to touch the cotton ball. But it's not just funny things like
so
I
you
had
can't
acrid.
stand cotton? Like what clothing do you wear, if I don't mind
Oh,
asking?
it's not cotton itself. It's the actual cotton balls that you would use to like clean your face or something like
Oh,
that.
okay.
I cannot touch them. And any type of fleece that kind of feels the same way, it gives me the icks. I know I'll start stimming when I touch them, but I'll like literally shake my hands because I'm trying to get rid of the feeling
Yep.
of having touched the cotton ball.
But
But
cotton
that's
clothing doesn't bother you?
no, it has to be like that ball feeling. Like I feel like that it makes noise somehow. It like there's a squeak. I don't know. It's to me it's very disturbing that particular sensory problem.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have other ones. I had Afrid as a kid. I was a very picky eater.
Oh, that's
And
tough. That's really tough.
my daughter has it too.
Oh, I'm
Right?
sorry. Oh, man.
Oh, but because I'm like, oh, I think she's just like me. Let's not push her to eat new stuff. Let's just give her what she wants to eat. Give her comfort food as long as she's
Mm-hmm.
fed. She loves fruit and everything.
Well,
We
that's
talked
good.
to we talked to a nutritionist. She's getting all of her nutrients. Let her do whatever she needs to.
Nice.
Okay, sure. We won't push her, so we never do.
That's awesome
But
that
I had
you're able to accommodate her with that.
yeah, it's one of the. It was really important to me that she not. Because I got in so much trouble for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when I did have friends eating at their house for dinner, I would get severe anxiety and like, what are they serving me? What's the food going to be? Am I going to be able to eat it? Am I going to gag? Am I going to do something rude?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd always try to avoid it, especially like, for example, to this day, like some of my problems I've been able to fix, but to this day, I cannot put a piece of tomato in my mouth unless I have something else that's going in there. I don't mind the taste of tomatoes. The texture of tomatoes will drive me nuts. Something
Yeah.
else has to be in my mouth at the same time.
Yeah.
Some of the things are very strange, but you learn how to deal with them.
Yeah,
Right?
and
Or
then you
avoid
just
them.
did you go to that situation in your mind where you're like, oh, everyone has to just suffer through this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Did-
Or like how like I'd always ask, how does that person just eat whatever? Like, and they don't have any it almost feels like some people don't have likes or dislikes. That's how I kind of, oh, that person could just eat everything. They just love everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for you,
Like
most of your sensory issues are food related?
uh food related. I didn't get so much the sound.
Oh,
Uh
you're lucky about that one. It
sensory
sucks. I
sound
have it and
issues.
it's not fun.
But bright lights.
Yeah.
And yeah, definitely bright lights. Migraines when I was 7. I don't know if it was really a sensory issue or just I get migraines. But it's gotten worse actually throughout the years. The sun, specifically the sun. I used to
Yeah.
think I was allergic to it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd sneeze in bright sunlight. Like I think I'm allergic to the sun,
Yeah.
right?
Well, you might
Before
be
I knew it was.
interested to know that autistic people are more prone to migraines significantly because of a couple of bioinflammatory markers in our bodies.
Interesting. How do you
Yeah.
find out if you have these markers?
That's what I was trying to figure out. How do you even know? I would imagine you'd have to do a special test for it. I was trying to find a test
Like
actually because
genetic
I'm quite
markers?
interested. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you type in bioinflammatory markers, autism, migraines,
Hmm.
you'll see a lot of results about basically how autism can cause so many additional comorbid conditions, but migraines in particular, there's a ton of research around it. So if you have migraines, it could be directly related to your autism.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely take a look at that
Yeah, I'd love to
at
share
some
some of the
point. Yeah.
research I have about it with you after the
Oh,
call.
absolutely. Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
So, Christina, since you mentioned you have some sensory issues, do you think that your sensory issues have gotten better or worse over time?
I would say most definitely worse. Specifically recently, over the past year and a half, I've started perimenopause. Lucky me, but I guess everyone goes through it. But for me, I started getting really bad sensory issues. It wasn't just about hot flashes. More than anything, I've been getting really cold, which is crazy because I've never had a cold sensitivity before. And also, my visual senses have changed a lot. I feel like there are times, and I'm not sure 100% why, that my brain is no longer able to process my visual sensations very easily, especially in very busy places like the street with traffic, with
Yeah,
a
I
lot of
was
people
I was going to
around.
ask, does that make driving impossible?
Well, that's just the thing. I've never been able to learn how to drive. It's always been a struggle for me. I guess s- knowing where to look and at what time to look and all the different things going on around me has always been so very overwhelming. And it's just gotten worse to the point where sometimes I get dizzy when I'm walking. And it took me a really long time to figure out why. And I realized I'm like, it's all the stuff going on around me is making like, it's like my brain it has started even processing it even slower now
Does
than
it
it used to.
does it almost feel like a type of vertigo in a way?
It does kind of, but it only happens during very specific situations. And it has a lot to do with my hormonal cycle. So I know it's directly related to my menopause cycles, whatever's been going on. But it took me a really long time to figure out. I'm like, am I just getting vertigo? Do I have POTS? What's going on, right? Is it a blood pressure thing? Did I forget to eat? Yeah, I was asking all of these questions and like, no, my brain is just not processing what I'm seeing as quickly as it used to. There was a definite slowdown, um, and I notice it now, and especially when it's sunny out. So over the last year, I have not taken off my sunglasses outside, even when it's raining. I
Yeah.
need to keep them on now at all times, otherwise I'll get dizzy. Like it will be so overwhelming to me, everything that's happening around me. So I don't know if that's anxiety or if it's really a processing issue,
Yeah, it definitely
but
sounds like it could be a processing issue. And processing is very different in autistic people compared to allistics. I found out recently that autistic people often have twice as fast, like a lot slower reaction time to auditory information specifically, but that can also
mhm.
impact visual as well in certain cases. And that kind of blew my mind. Like, wait, you're telling me all the times I misinterpreted what someone was saying because I wasn't processing it as quickly as everyone else? And it was shocking to
That's
figure that out.
exactly that's what it feels like for me. And when I look at my daughter, I can see, especially with the auditory processing, oh yeah, I can definitely tell it takes her longer with words. Especially, right? You ask her a question, sometimes it will take her a while for her to understand what you've said, come up with an answer, and then give it back to you. So sometimes it's just, oh, you have to be patient, but I can see her going through the process. Even her body language shows me like exactly what it is that she's doing, right?
That's amazing that you're able to get to be patient with her and not make assumptions about it. I can't tell you how many times in my life people would assume that I was intentionally misunderstanding them, or like, I don't think there was a single person in my life who knew that it was just a form of processing if I didn't respond instantly. And the fact that you understand that is amazing for her. Like, I'm honestly stoked for her life. Like, she's going to have such a great life to have a mom as understanding and accommodating as you are.
She gives me deja vu.
It's incredible.
That's the thing. Like, she gives me deja vu. So I've, like, in some ways totally forgotten about some of these things because it happened when I was so young. But then I watch her and it's like, she brings back, like, just the way she moves and the way she acts, she brings back all of these memories. I'm like, oh yeah, that looks familiar. I used to do that.
That's amazing.
And even with the processing, like, the one time I asked her a question and she closed her eyes. You could see her eyes roll to the back of her head, and you could see her almost like you could almost see her saying what I had just said to her, but inside of her head. Mm-hmm. She got halfway through it. Yes, mommy, I do want whatever it was that I asked her, right?
Yeah.
Okay, right? I do wonder, based on her, because we're so similar, she's level 2. I don't know if levels really mean very much, but I'm like, I have a feeling that's where I probably would have been diagnosed level 2 had I been assessed as a child.
Yeah.
Probably not now, but I would have been diagnosed as level 2, probably.
It definitely sounds like it is, especially you mentioned that you don't drive.
Nope.
Yeah.
I've tried, and I'm not that great at it.
That's tough. That's really tough. Do you feel like not being able to drive has impacted your life in a lot of ways?
Oh, absolutely. From finding jobs, because a lot of times you do need a car to get to where you're going. I can only live in big cities that have good transportation, but I hate taking the TTC because I have sensory issues around being around so many people. I'm really uncomfortable with it. But I have to, it's one or the other, right? I did try to learn how to drive. And I'm not sure if it's just the autism and the sensory issues, or there's some trauma there. My dad died in a car accident when I was young. And so maybe there's still some sort of a fear that maybe the same thing would happen to me if I were to drive, you know? So I don't think it's just necessarily autism. I think I probably would be able to learn if I really put my mind to it. Like, I do ride my bike around in the summertime on the street and I'm okay. Something about cars. I can't tell where the corners are.
Yeah.
And, where, like, how to turn and how close I'm going to be to something. I struggle with that a lot. It's the bigger things. That's not interoception. What is that? Where you can't figure out where your body is in relation to other things?
Spatial awareness. And
I feel that
same.
way with my cars. Yeah.
If I had $1 for every bruise I've gotten from ramming my body into different things, I could just retire today.
Yeah. Oh, me too. And like, how did I get, I don't even feel them anymore.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm like, oh, there's 4 bruises here. Wow. Yeah. How'd that happen?
I'm bruised all over my body and I'm like, I don't know where they came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen how difficult it is to not be able to drive and transport other people as well. My dad is legally blind, so I grew up with one parent never driving at all. Mm-hmm. And it definitely takes a toll, both on kind of like your sense of independence and
absolutely,
and also what activities you can actually do. Like before Uber and Lyft, which were life-changing for my dad, he literally just had to rely on my mom to drive him everywhere.
Oh, that's so sad.
And when it was like celebrated
for sure.
It was celebrated for my sister and I to finally get our driver's licenses, because it made a huge difference in the family to be able to drive dad where he needed to go.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Uber and Lyft.
It just blows my mind, honestly, that you weren't diagnosed at the very least 20 years ago.
Me too.
I don't understand like everything you're saying. I'm like, it seems obvious. And
it seems obvious to me. I'm having a hard time getting my doctors to believe me now.
Are you joking?
I am not joking.
You don't
The thing is,
drive. Like that's what?
doctors don't seem to ask the right questions. They are all about like, well, what are your emotions like? I'm like, what do you mean? What are my emotions like? Do you know what it's like to go outside for me? I feel blind. I really do. Sorry, but I'm like,
Oh,
because of the light, and I can't drive, and I I try to explain stuff to my doctors, and yeah, they ask one question about like developmentally. Did you start speaking at a normal age? And I'm honestly, I really don't know, but I'm like, I think so, because no one told me that I had a speech delay. How do I know? Like I don't remember being two, right?
yeah.
Like that was like one question that I got from a psychiatrist. Oh, well, what age did you start speaking? I'm not sure. Like, how, I think it was early actually, but I don't know.
And the
But that's
frustrating thing
also a
about
sign.
that question is that doesn't even rule out autism either.
I know. But that was the one question I got asked. And then it was all about, like those generic mental health questions. And I don't really know how to, like, I try so hard to answer them in a clear, logical way. And I mess up every single time because, oh, it sounds like bipolar disorder. What?
Yeah, it's really
I like,
frustrating to
yeah.
you already kind of have an idea of what's going on and that you can't even find a doctor who's skilled enough to be able to understand it and give you a diagnosis. It's just absurd.
So
And all
far,
I
I mean,
can say is that I relate. Unfortunately, I
yeah.
did a bunch of research when I got my diagnosis to find someone who had 25 years of experience diagnosing autistic people. But it's really tough to find valid medical care for any autism issue.
And then on the flip side, the pediatrician, the developmental pediatrician that diagnosed my daughter, because it was so obvious in my daughter, it took 15 minutes to diagnose my daughter.
It's ridiculous.
But
It's
when I was talking to her afterwards, and you know what she said to me? Oh, because she was then she was telling me about ABA therapy, right? This
yeah.
is part of her diagnosis. She's telling me about ABA therapy. Well, ABA therapy will allow your daughter to mask her autism as well as you are. What? Oh, did you just diagnose me?
Did she say that
Did
to
you
you?
just diagnose me with autism at the same appointment?
That's shocking.
I
Wow.
was like, what's going on?
As well as you are. I don't know. That's almost a compliment, but it's also like a backhanded insult in a way.
I know.
I
I'm
don't
like,
even
well,
know how to interpret that, honestly.
thank you, but like, she's the only professional who's basically been open to the idea. I'm telling my doctors, I'm like, my daughter's just like me. She's doing all these things that I did when I was a kid, and blah 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 blah. And they're like, yeah, we don't think you have autism.
What? That does not. I don't understand. I keep pushing. Honestly,
Yeah.
keep pushing. See another specialist if you need to. Find someone who actually knows how to diagnose, because a lot of doctors will just look at per certain symptom and be like, "Yeah, that's depression," even though it's
Exactly.
autistic burnout.
Yeah, me trying to explain, because when all of this started happening with my menopause, my perimenopause, and like, oh my gosh, the sensory issues were just so insane. So of course then I go into burnout, and I'm so burnt out. I don't want to go outside. I'm getting Raynaud's. That's where your feet turn white,
Oh,
because I'm getting so cold sensitive from going outside, and it's winter. I live in Canada. Like, it's a big problem. And I'm trying to explain to my doctor what's happening. That I'm isolating my even more because I have a busy job, and I think I was the only one working at the time. So I have all this stress about all these things I need to do, and yet I can't go outside. Every time I go outside, my feet freeze. And by the end of the day, I'm so exhausted, there's nothing left. And I literally said, there's like nothing left of me. Like, all I do is try to rest enough so that I can make it through the next day.
yeah.
Oh, sounds like you've got anxiety and you've got depression. That
I
whole
don't
time,
understand that.
for whatever reason, especially depression, maybe because that was a depressing moment, really. But the anxiety, I didn't even have enough brain cells to be anxious about anything. Like, I felt like I was in survival mode.
Yeah,
It was the worst burnout I had, and it lasted about 6 to 8 months
that's rough.
of
I'm so
intense
sorry.
burnout. Yeah. And because I had no support, I tried because I never felt so sick in my whole life, and had no idea what was going on. And I had to pull myself out of it. I didn't have like, they didn't know how to help me, I would say, right? I don't know if it wasn't that they didn't want to, but I kept saying, well, I'm not anxious because they wanted to put me on SSRIs. I've had bad experiences with SSRIs. I don't want to take them. They make me feel really weird. They don't help.
Yeah. There's a
So I
lot
guess
of research behind why that is involving glutamate in the brain, but basically SSRIs can increase glutamate, and autism already causes increased glutamate in a lot of brain areas, and that's responsible for a lot of our symptoms like sensory overload.
that would probably explain why menopause is like, I don't know if glutamate is exactly the same thing. One thing I'm gonna have to actually Google this, but one thing I realized helped, and I am very actually upset that I need to do this, but it helps, is keto. Keto really helps me with my day-to-day energy levels in a way that I never really expected. I'd been on keto once before, years prior, after I had my daughter, weight loss, dieting, and stuff like that. And I
What is
noticed it gave me a
keto
lot of
again?
energy. Keto is when you put your body in a state of ketosis, meaning you don't eat a lot of carbohydrates. You keep them to a very small number of carbs per day, grams of 20 grams or less of carbs per day, or sometimes 50, depending on who you are. And you basically eat a lot of real food. So lots of meat, lots of cheese, dairy products are all allowed, lots of leafy green vegetables. You just have to be careful with anything that can spike your blood sugar.
Yeah.
And I noticed that for whatever reason, it's still up in the air for me. I'm still not positive exactly why my body's reacting really badly to sugar. But if I eat sugar, I tend to get extraordinarily fatigued. Something I've never experienced. Like I've experienced being tired before, but this is at a level that's just so much larger. And nothing really that you can do about it. Coffee doesn't help. Actually, if I drink coffee when I feel like that, I'll go to sleep. Like my body will react completely differently than it normally does. So yeah, ever since menopause, keto has been almost a lifesaver. But I had to find out on my own
Wow.
what would help me, because my blood sugar, if you look at it in tests, it looks fine.
That's
So
amazing. It's
there's
had so
nothing
many
showing up.
benefits for you.
Yeah, it's been really, really helpful.
Did you
It's
cut
just really hard to follow.
did you cut back on bread a lot?
Well, I don't eat bread now at all.
At all? Wow.
Yeah, you can't really have bread. It will spike your blood sugar really high, really fast. It's a very high glycemic food
Yeah. That's
source.
that's probably
Yeah.
why it's helped so much. So there's one theory that I've seen about an acid called propionic acid, which is very common in processed foods. And autistic people are typically hypersensitive to this acid. And propionic acid can cause a huge amount of symptoms. And if you look at the whole list of symptoms, it's actually kind of shocking how much of it aligns with the autism experience as well. And so
Interesting.
cutting back on any of that type of acid can significantly improve your life. And it's pretty fascinating to me to hear that you've tried this and figured that out already and that you've seen so
Without
many
even
positive
ever hearing of
results.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've never even heard of it before.
that's awesome.
It's I think it's somehow like hard to explain, obviously, like most things about me, but my body seemed to tell me that it needed to be in keto. Maybe because I'd been in ketosis before, but I'm having an energy crisis, and the thought just kept popping into my head, girl, you're going to have to go back on keto. And I
Wow.
was like, no, 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 no. I don't want to go back. Like I would actually fight with my brain because I didn't want to, because I'm addicted to sugar, or I was addicted to sugar. I love carby foods. My favorite food comes from Burger King.
Yeah.
So it was a really, really hard thing to do. I actually almost feel resentful that I need to do it, but at the same time, it's hugely beneficial to me. I will do it just so I don't get those crashes that I was getting. which were horrendous.
Yeah.
And I still don't have a lot of energy, but it doesn't tank as nearly as quickly as it used to, right?
That's fantastic. I'm glad you found something that's working for you.
Hmm.
I think it's really hard for people who are not autistic to even understand and imagine how much energy it takes just to exist for us. Whether that's
Right?
through masking or through trying to socialize or through copying body language or all of the above or sensory overload. I mean, even if you excluded sensory overload in the ideal sensory environment, which really
Hmm.
rarely happens anyways, but even if you
Yep.
could somehow exclude that, autism has a direct impact on energy levels in so many different ways. Do you ever
Hmm.
feel like it's almost like a sine wave where one day you'll feel almost manic? And I don't mean the medical term manic, to be clear. I mean just like
You just lots of energy.
yeah, like
Yeah, absolutely.
you
Yep.
just can't. You have to go out and sprint or something to get it out, or to do something. You have to.
Almost like you have restless legs without having restless
Yes,
legs.
exactly.
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely. Like there are days where I wake up and I'm like somehow just raring to go.
yes,
And I'm just like, okay. And then I can do all of these things. All of a sudden I have all this energy. And,
yeah.
sometimes you feel like, oh, well, I did it. So now I'm going to feel like this forever. And then you wake up the next day and you're like, I
Crash.
can't get out of bed. you know?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
kind of the point
absolutely.
where I almost hate that state because you just know the crash is coming. It's like, yeah, great.
Yep.
I have extra energy for the next 8 hours and we'll be dead
Mhm.
tomorrow.
But
It
then
just sucks.
you have to like seize the moment. Okay, I have this energy today. What can I do with it? And then,
Yeah.
try to get whatever it is done.
Let,
Because I'm a very, even though like I'm very animated when I speak, I realize that, but like I'm a very low energy person, right? I'm very like, I don't want to go back to my, when I felt like I was morally wrong, but lazy, right?
I hate that word.
Me
I
too.
really
I
do.
really hate that word, but it kind of looks that way. I move around slowly. I'm all sluggish. I just want to sit down all the time,
Well, if you
and
don't, you get another 18 bruises from running into stuff.
absolutely, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, like the need to rest and to be well rested is a lifelong struggle, right?
It is.
Because there are times, I'm sure you can commiserate with this, where you could sleep for like 17 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd probably still wake up feeling a little bit tired, like those times during burnout where
Yeah.
you just really need the sleep. It doesn't come with a mood. You still can be in a really good mood. You're just tired and you want to sleep for 17 hours, right?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So, having burnout is really terrible, but on the flip side, yeah, every once in a while, like maybe you've slept your way into a really good high energy state for one day, and then you have to seize the moment. It doesn't happen very
Yeah.
often necessarily,
It's
right?
sort of like let's clean my entire house while I still can.
Oh, that's when all the ducks line up
Yes.
and you can clean your house, especially if you have the day to yourself that day, like there's no
Yeah.
one else there and you can blast your music and clean your whole house.
I have to do this today, otherwise I won't be able to for the next 2 months. To just know that is
Yeah.
kind of stressful
Mhm.
sometimes. Well, Christina, I just wanted to thank you again for being willing to do this podcast with me. We have a couple minutes left. Is if there's anything that you'd like to tell the audience, that would be great. It's really challenging sometimes to be autistic and undiagnosed because you live your life thinking, what's wrong with me? And then turns out there's hundreds of thousands of other people like you.
There's so much importance in community, and especially if you're a parent, as I am, and you have an autistic child, try to connect with the adult autism community. I found so many fantastic and wonderful people just by asking questions, things that I was unclear about, things that I needed to know for the benefit of my daughter, to help me understand her struggles, and then also, in my case, to help me understand myself. but really listen. There's a wealth of information out there. If you don't like Reddit and you don't want to write out questions, there are numerous podcasts, there's YouTube, and there's just people who know so many things, just like the podcast I'm on, and the wonderful work that you're doing as well. You're one of those wonderful people.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the compliment. I hope that at some point all of this autism awareness would become public knowledge, and that it would be something that doesn't need to be talked about anymore. That's kind of what I'd love to see. I'd love for society to recognize that maybe subtext shouldn't be the default. Maybe we're better off with clear communication styles. Maybe we shouldn't make assumptions at a subconscious level about what people are doing and saying, because a lot of those subconscious assumptions just cause a lot of trouble. And
absolutely.
It would be great if society could be more direct, not exclusively as an accommodation for autistic people, but in general, because it's easier to understand what's happening for everyone. Sure. Even for neurotypical people, if you're direct and you have a clear communication style, then there's no ambiguity and there's less mistakes. Sure.
And a lot of accommodations that help autistic people help everyone.
Exactly. And even other conditions as well, like reducing sensory overload and reducing certain brightness of lights or super loud sounds. A lot of people are sensitive to that and they're not autistic. So,
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. A lot of these accommodations that society could give us would help everyone, not just autistic people.
I think, people in general really need a better understanding of what the issues are, why they happen, and how accommodating them can change everyone's life for the better, not just an autistic child's life.
Yeah, so you don't have to go through cycles of burnout over and over and over again with everyone in your life asking you to change and be someone you're not.
Absolutely.
You can just be yourself and be loved and accepted for that person. And I think having that community and that connection is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
So, Christina, thank you so much for being on the podcast, and thank you for being willing and brave enough to share your experience. I imagine it would be really challenging to get or to start to suspect a diagnosis like this at age 42. I thought I was diagnosed late at 26. So thank you so much for sharing and being willing to talk about it. It really means a lot.
You're very welcome. And thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed our talk.
Great. Thank you, Christina, and hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.